Scoodly doodly doo, it's time for another Welch review. Scoodly doodly doo doo.
Evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Welch Review. Today we're going to be talking about Tom Cruise's perhaps the biggest movie of his career, Top Gun Maverick. Now, I saw this movie, I want to tell you, 3 times, but I definitely know I saw it twice. It's a little misleading there, but I saw it once with my best friend and my fiance and his wife, or let me rephrase that: me and my fiance, my best buddy, and his wife. We went on a double date, and then my fiance and I took her father out to see it, and I feel like we saw it again, the two of us, but I could be wrong. But either way, it's an amazing movie. It's one of those rare things where the sequel almost is, I shouldn't say almost, where the sequel is better or just as good as the original, and that doesn't happen too often, but this certainly soars into that type of category. Now, naturally, reprising his role as Pete Maverick Mitchell is Tom Cruise, a man who I'm sure needs no introduction, but just in case you're not familiar with Mr. Cruise, he is from the Mission Impossible film franchise, War of the Worlds, Minority Report, Risky Business, or personally my mom's favorite film, Cocktails, which is another great movie. And also, coming into this is Val Kilmer, who hasn't necessarily been in a movie theater film in quite some time, given that he also just had a throat cancer and his speech isn't exactly there. But he reprises his role nonetheless as Tom Iceman Kazansky. And you'll know Val Kilmer, of course, as Iceman from Top Gun, but also he played Batman in Batman Returns. And he was in The Doors, where he played Jim Morrison, and the drug-themed film Wonderland. Then you have Miles Teller as Rooster. Miles Teller was in 21 and Over, That Awkward Moment, in The Spectacular Now. You have Jennifer Connelly as Penny. And Jennifer Connelly's from A Beautiful Mind, The Rocketeer, and Career Opportunities. She's also married to Paul Bettany, and she is the voice inside of the Spider-Man suit in the MCU movies, which is pretty cool. Then as Hondo, you have Bashir Salahuddin. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but he was in Cyrano, Southside, and Gringo. Gringo is a very underrated movie. I would encourage you to check that out. David Oyelowo does a great job in that. Maybe we'll talk about that in a coming video. But that's a great movie. You have John Hamm as Admiral Simpson. John Hamm was in Mad Men, Beirut, Baby Driver. You have Charles Parnell as Admiral Bates. He was from The Warriors, Transformers Age of Extinction, and the TNT show The Last Ship. You have Monica Barbaro as Phoenix. She was in Army of the Dead, Las Vegas, which is the animated tie-in. I'm Charlie Walker and Stumptown. You have Lewis Pullman, who is Bill Pullman's son, right? So the president from Independence Day, the fish and wildlife guy from Lake Placid, and Daryl Zero in the Zero Effect. So this is his son, Lewis, and he plays Bob. And he was in Outer Range, which is on, God, what is that? That's on Amazon with Thanos, the guy who plays Thanos. I'm sorry, his name's no, is it Josh Brolin? There you go. Bad Times at the El Royale and Catch 22. You have Jay Ellis as Payback. He's in Insecure, In a Relationship, and Escape Room Tournament of Champions. You have Danny Ramirez as Fanboy. He was in Assassination Nation, No Exit, and The Falcon and the Soldier. You have Glenn Powell as Hangman. Glenn Powell is basically like, we'll get into it, but he's basically like the Iceman of this generation of Top Gunners, and he's fantastic in this. He very much kind of reminds me of like a younger Brad Pitt, so I hope big things are in store for him. We'll come back to talking about Glenn Powell. But he was in Expendables 3, the spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, Everybody Wants Some, and the Netflix hit Set It Up. And then you have, this was a story by Peter Craig and Justin Marks. Peter Craig wrote The Town and The Batman. So not only did like The Batman come out like last March, But then like a couple months later, he had this come out. So that guy's just like hitting homers left and right. And then Justin Marks did The Jungle Book and Counterpart, which was a TV show. I heard it was great, but it abruptly got canceled with J.K. Simmons. And this is based on characters created by Jim Cash and Jack Epps, who were the original writers of Top Gun, the first movie. And the screenplay was by Aaron Kruger, who wrote The Ring, Dumbo, and Ghost in the Shell. Eric Wagner Singer, who wrote American Hustle, Only the Brave, and The International. And Tom Cruise's new go-to and frequent collaborator, Christopher McQuarrie, who directed Edge of Tomorrow, or wrote Edge of Tomorrow, Mission Impossible Fallout, and The Usual Suspects. He's also directed the first Jack Reacher and the 2 new Mission Impossibles. That's like 2 halves. He wrote and he's directing both of them. And this film was directed by Joseph Kosinski, who did Tron Legacy, Only the Brave, and he worked with Tom Cruise on the film Oblivion. So, that's who's who, where you may know them from. A lot of familiar faces, but certainly a lot of new faces. So I guess first let's talk about Pete Maverick Mitchell. So, as you saw at the end of Top Gun, right? He goes in, saves Iceman. They become homies. All is well in the kingdom of Top Gunnery. And that's pretty dope. They're both aces. He's gone on, right? Right now he's working on seeing what the speed limit is for this new jet. And of course, Maverick being Maverick, he just obeys orders. Most of the other like underlings love him, but like generals and top brass get really pissed off at him. So he's still pushing buttons left and right. Not really a changed person per se, except I think he doesn't, in the quiet moments, that's when you really see who he is. And he's a man filled with deep grief and sadness and hurt, and I think, maybe interjecting, but it seems like, he isn't letting anyone get close because, like, Goose was close, and then Goose died, and I'm sure he still carries and feels a lot of responsibility for his best friend's death. And I can't even imagine what that does to somebody. But Tom Cruise plays it so well, where the first one he was really cocky. This one, I think you really like Maverick more as a person, and he gives his character so much more depth. And I know with time, people reflect and look at the things in their life that have occurred, and that's what it seems like, Maverick has had happen. Tom Cruise has really played this guy like a real person. Obviously, there are some, circumstances that don't seem realistic, but as a character, he's very, very grounded, very, very real, and it was really nice to see that. And I liked him more in this movie than I did in the first one, which leads us then to this new batch of people, right? It seems like they're doing the Expendables 3 thing, or what they seem to be doing in all old franchises, where they're bringing in new people to kind of continue this into possible spin-offs and sequels and things of that nature, which would make sense. But this then focuses on Goose's son, Rooster, and the tumultuous relationship he and Maverick have, and how they're going to patch that up, and how they can navigate their new mission with him as leader, with this bad blood in between them. And then, of course, for every hero, there has to be an adversary, and that adversary is Hangman, who is played by Glenn Powell. But Miles Teller, I think, aside from choosing a call sign that is similar to his father's, right, both a farmyard bird, he does a very, very good job in this universe. He strikes me as someone who has some swagger, a sense of loyalty and pride. But as an actor, I think Miles Teller just plays Miles Teller. I don't know if there's any real depth that he's swimming to, but I think what he brings to the table is really good. I think he's just himself, and that was good. It was perfect in this film, And then I guess looking at the new Hangman, Iceman, Glenn Powell, I think really, relishes his role and chews up every scene he's in and really owns it. That whole idea when people look at you and they judge you like, oh, this guy is a tool, or just off the bat, they know nothing about it. I think he really plays into that hard. And it serves him well for this because, you love to hate Bagman, but you also think like, okay, he's memorable, right? You pay attention to him when he's on screen. I read somewhere that he had tried out for the Rooster role, but then they told him he would be better for this, and he is good at this. And I hope if they continue that route, then, we'll see more Hangman and more Rooster together, certainly. And then just the way this movie is shot is like insanely well done. And you feel like you're right in the jet, and you wonder. It seems like these guys flew the jets themselves, which I think has come out, and that's accurate. Or they were in the jets at least. But it's a really, really well done film. And it's also like, not only is it just like an adventure, an action story, but in a way it's also a love story and a character study, right? Like Jennifer Connelly is the new love interest, and what's crazy is I was talking with a coworker of mine, and he was telling me that like in the first Top Gun they have this character mentioned called Penny, like he was some general's daughter that Tom Cruise was seeing. And they took that small line of dialogue and built this whole character out of it for this new movie. And it's like you don't even know that he like rode off in the sunset with someone else in the first one. It's like, yeah, this is who he's supposed to be with. And it's just really beautiful, like the whole dynamic between the two and how they come to find each other, and then just all of Maverick's realizations, balancing that character piece with like, yeah, the fighter pilot stuff. Like one doesn't have a heavier hand than the other, and it doesn't feel like they're shoehorning more story into it than spectacle. And it's just like a really, really, really great movie. I cannot recommend Maverick enough to people. I would encourage you, if you still have not seen it, make sure you do, or pre-order it, or whatever you got to do to get your hands on it. I hope this is not the end for the Top Gun universe. I'd love to see more. I'm thinking a lot of people want to see more, and it was so high grossing, I'm sure it is going to see more. So certainly go see it, get it, watch it, talk about it. It's amazing. And yeah, Tom Cruise, man, is just on the right track, and I look forward to seeing his new Mission Impossible films. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you next time. Have a great day. Stay gold.